In this video, we're going to talk about how to use the alarm query filter to narrow your alarms for when you're filtering alarms. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I have a subscriber that was actually having an issue. He was using the example in the book where they show you how to use alarm queries to change the alarm query on the actual alarm client. And I find this setup to actually be a little easier, even though it does require a little bit of pre-configuration. So before we get into that, I want to talk about the Galaxy that I have configured here, so that you can understand how I'm setting it up. So what I've done is I've created on this GR a view app engine, a view app, a units engine, a area genset 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a site area. And the reason I did that was so that in the model view I have my genset area 1, 2, 3, and 4 feeding into the site area as an alarm, a master alarm area, so that all alarms will flow into the site area. And that you'll see why I did that in a minute. Now in the view app, I've actually created this alarm symbol so that in the alarm symbol, which is going to essentially become a screen symbol, we put our alarm client and then any other controls that we want to use around that. And that's so, okay, when you go into the view app, you can see that, so I've created a screen called alarm test screen, and I'm going to delete this just so you'll see what I did. So we came up here to the embed orchestra graphic, and I went to my view app, and I just dropped that symbol straight in here. So any changes now I make in the IDE to this graphic symbol will automatically be translated into the view app without me having to go in and edit the view app at any time. And of course, anytime you make a change to a symbol that's embedded in a view app, you have to redeploy your view app. So now that I've established basically the layout and structure for my Galaxy, let's talk about some other things that need to be running. And in this case, because we're using alarms, anytime you have to have a way to push alarms into your A2LMDB. So if you go to SQL Management Studio, you'll see that this is your A2LMDB database, and you can see what's in there simply by going to Alarm History and selecting the top 1,000 rows. And you can see we already have some data in there, so I know that it's working, and I know that I'm pumping new alarms in. Now to set this up, okay, basically you go to settings, and then you need to configure that A2LMDB. So make sure that in this case I'm using localhost, the A2LMDB database. I have an SA account. I'm using detailed logging mode. I could create the database if it didn't exist, but since it exists already, I'm just going to test the connection, and it did succeed. The next step is to put your alarm query string. This is the alarm query string that pushes data from the alarm provider into the A2LMDB. So in my case, since I created a site alarm area, which is a master alarm area, and all alarms flow into that, all I have to do is push that one area into the database and all alarms will come in. And you can actually run this as a service if you choose. I'm going to run it as an application for this example. And then once you've done that, just hit start, and then now your alarms, it'll make sure and cache any and push them in as they occur. That I'm going to test the alarms is because I'm not going to use a simulator, or I'm not connected to a PLC. I actually came over to the derivation view and created this exhaust object, which has two analog field attributes. And because the way to test that is I went ahead and created these UDAs, these internal UDAs that are also floats, and then source them back to the field attribute, so that if I change this value in its input source, it'll change the value of the field attribute. Then I set the alarm limit to be high at 1,000. So anything over 1,000 will trigger an alarm on that analog. So now let's go back and talk about the alarm client setup. So in here, this is our alarm client, and you'll see that I've set up the history as Windows integrated to my A2LMDB, and you always want to test your connection. Now you can set these up. Here's where you set your colors, your column details, time settings, all these other settings. You can set these up however you want. Now, the focus of what the example today is using the alarm query filter. So the key to this one is pre-configuring these alarm filters. So I have one set up for all. It's called all, and it actually has the site. So if you look in here, it actually is, the provider is Galaxy, the group is site. So I know that when site is selected as a filter, all alarms are going to be displayed. So that query filter name then, or favorite name, becomes all. And then down the line, I just do them so that the group genset 1 becomes genset 1 filter, 2, 3, 4, etc. Now, real quick, just to create a new one, you just hit the add button. You find provider, and then you can filter on any of these other things you want. But for this example, we're just talking about setting up a very simple filter based on the groups. So pull in group, and I'm going to just call this all 2, and I'm going to name it all 2 and hit OK. Oops, site. All right, so this is Galaxy and site, and also I'm going to make this OR to make sure that it gets everything. And so that would actually be very same as the one I did here. Okay. So, and now we don't need that for this example, so I'm going to delete that. But that's how easy it is to set these filters up in advance. And actually, once you've set them up, you can export them to an XML file. I've already done that, but I'll show you. So you could save these queries and then re-import them later and change them up. And actually, let's see if I can find that. And here's what the XML file looks like. You see, it's got all the favorite filters, it's got them by name, and then all the information about each one. So that guy can actually be imported back in later. So now to make that change off of this radio button, we're going to create an option. Each option matches one of our query filter favorite names. And then we're going to push those into a string reference called favorite string. And that is a custom property of this symbol. So when I go over to the symbol itself, I created a custom property called favorite string property. And I made the default as all, but you could do it whatever you wanted. And then, so on show, I have a script that just says set the alarm client favorite to all. So show everything on show. And set the alarm client mode to 1. And the alarm client modes are 1 is summary, 3 is history. So in this case, it's going to come in as a summary and it's going to show all. Then I created a data change script. And this is actually the secret sauce to this method, is that I have a data change script that fires every time this data changes in that favorite string reference. And every time you change a radio button option, it's going to change this string. And then it's going to load that as a favorite into the alarm client. And that forces it to switch between genset 1, genset 2, genset 3, genset 4, and all. So that's really the main thing that's making this work. All right, so now we're ready to go ahead and take a look at it in Runtime. So I'm going to pull up the viewer and hit run. All right, and there you can see the alarms that I turned on, the ones that I had already acknowledged previously. This is the summary. I could also go to the history and notice that these are all of the items that are in my history now. So if I want to now, as I filter them down, if I want to just see Genset 1's data, I just click that, and then now you can see I'm only looking at Genset 1, Genset 2, Genset 3, Genset 4, and then all. And if I want to go back and see the history, it works the same way. So there's all the history items for Genset 1, Genset 2, Genset 3, Genset 4, and all. All right, and now there's a lot of different things you can do to manipulate this alarm client. And so the scope of this example, I just wanted to show how to do query filters using the alarm query filters favorites. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you like the video, please click like or subscribe, and you can check out my tutorial book and course at www.charlesbvance.com.